Hi guys, it's Hella from Dawn Emporium. Normally when I do these videos it's to talk about crystals and how beautiful they are, or like stuff that is pretty pants that has gone on in the world, is going on in the world, stuff like that. But I'm going to be honest with you, been feeling ill recently. I've tried to start numerous videos, just the write-ups, and failed. So, feeling a bit of a failure, moaned to a friend, and he said, well, you can swing this to your advantage and use everything that's wrong with you in videos to normalise what's wrong with you, and therefore help spread awareness for other things that's wrong with other people. So that's what I'm here for. However, this is like probably take 5. Because you've got to remember, I have no editing gear, so I have to do this all first off. Yay! It's not really very helpful. And normally in these videos that I've been doing, I've been trying to do it all at once and it's failed. So I'm just doing one thing at a time per video. And this video is going to be about my epilepsy, which hasn't actually struck in ages, I'll be honest, but it's there, it's a part of me. I have to take medications for it every day. In fact, it's the only thing I take medications for every day. Everything else I can live without medications for, mainly because I'm only actually on pain meds otherwise. Well, that's what I'm prescribed. I actually live on like what do you call them, multivitamins, because, well, that's another video right there. Right, so let's go right back to the beginning. At about 5 years old, I had my first migraine. Now, as we know, migraines and migraines, they're their own class of hell. But looking back on it later, there could have been a link. And I didn't know what was happening. The world was ending. My head was trying to explode, implode, nuclear bombs going off. Awful. So I just went to sleep. What else was there to do? These carried on, picking up frequency as I aged. And by my teenage years, they were that bad that I'd had to go to a doctor to try and get medication for it, which is all fair, well and good, except for the fact that it got to a point where preventative measures weren't working. Measures for when you'd already got the migraines weren't working in most cases. And the GP just turned around and said, I don't think you've got migraines. I think you're just addicted to taking drugs. So I lost my head, and honestly, I was about 14, 15 at the time, but I was in an area where taking drugs was actually pretty common. We actually, bearing in mind this is a nice suburban village, we had a, was it 4-page spread in like the Sun or the Mirror, something like that, about how prevalent drug addiction was in the village where I grew up, which just tells you everything really, because you didn't really see like heroin addicts on the street, or you know how these days, I don't know if people abroad get this, but over here we have this drug called spice, and people will just be there like, and that's all they will just be zombies stood up. Sometimes they'll fall down and they'll injure themselves, but they'll just be catatonic. And that's it. They will literally defecate on themselves because they don't have any control over their body. So they'll do stuff like that. Didn't have any of that. What it was mainly the women were on pain medication. So like half the people I was surrounded by were pretty much drugged up to the eyeballs because they'd all had, like, you know how it starts. You end up with a small injury that becomes inflamed. You get pain. You go to the doctor. You get pain pills. and you end up addicted to taking the pain pills. It's so common. And please believe me when I say that if you end up in that situation, I am never going to judge you. I will try and help you off if you want helping off, but I will never judge you. I never judge anyone for drug addiction, because I know there's always a cause, and it's very rarely the actual high you get off the drugs. It's usually something that was there long before you started taking drugs. So I was in this area where I was used to seeing people that looked absolutely fine that were addicted to taking drugs. Suddenly this doctor sitting there telling me I am addicted to taking drugs. So I lost my head and I turned around and said, so I'm addicted to taking a non-addictive drug that has no effect other than to ease the pain of a migraine. And he said, yes, but you're addicted to the act of taking the drug, not the drug itself. I was like, if I was addicted to the act of taking a drug, I would go for one that makes me high, surely. And he just went, no, you wouldn't. Does that make sense to anyone? Because I have asked people, I have asked drug addicts, I have asked medical professionals, I have asked old ex-medical professionals, and I have asked psychologists, and nobody thinks that that reasoning makes sense. So we took away the prescription for the only thing that actually worked on my migraines a smidge at one of the worst times of my migraines, because around puberty, if you have migraines, is when they tend to be the worst because of the hormone fluctuations, which is fair. Sorry, my neck needs cracking, it's pain. There you go. Right, so we have that. Now, I'd always had deja vus as well. And deja vus are, the best way to put it, glitches in the Matrix, because it was literally shown in the Matrix. You know, the black cat going by the door, then it goes by again a second later. That is a deja vu. But they can happen with quite a space. It's not automatically within a millisecond like that was. It can be, you can go somewhere where you have never been before and you can think you have been there. So, like, you could take me to the Houses of Parliament and I can think I've been there again, you know, before. And it's really weird, because I haven't, and if I had, in my past life, I would have been the guy trying to blow it up. So I'd know the Sellers War. But, you know, that's the way it works. So I'd always had that. I got told that that was normal. However, I got told that that was normal by my grandpa, who got a lump of masonry on his head as a child in World War II during the Blitz in the Northeast and spent 9 months in a waking coma. Didn't put two and two together, because that could have been linked, because most people have maybe a deja vu a year. I could have them at a bad point around my migraines about 3 times a day. They were my tells for my migraines. Gets to my 20s and my migraines actually change from one style to many different styles. And I didn't realise there was a link, but in my early 20s I'd had a son and I'd been put on medication because I had postnatal depression, also known as postpartum depression. That word makes no sense to me. Postnatal depression to me. So that gave me a dissociative disorder, because I'm not very good with that kind of thing. Just drugs to do with my brain. Didn't realise that at the time. But while I was on it, and for about a year after it, the migraines, they changed to any form of migraine. Because migraines, there's lots of different types of migraines. They all have different side effects, different effects. And suddenly I was having different types. But still, deja vus. Still didn't think anything of it. Then in my mid-20s, my mental health took a big swan dive, basically. I'm not even sure why, just chemical imbalance. You know, the wind was blowing the wrong way, the moon was in the wrong I don't know. If you know someone with bad mental health, you know it doesn't take much to set them off. They probably don't even know what sets them off. It just goes. And I swan dived. And I literally went into my local hospital and said, I'm not leaving until I get some help. Sorry if you can hear strange noises. Come on up. That furry bum there is Odin. Hello, baby boy. Hello, gorgeous. Hello. So the doctor agreed to see me. He was actually a professor because he was a mister. Ooh, posh. And he came and he asked me lots of questions and agreed to put me on a drug. And he did everything right. I have no problems with him. The one that I blame is the doctor who turned around and said I was addicted to drugs as opposed to sending me to a neurologist, which is what he should have done. So, I hate ice cream vans. Seriously, they never come around our area in warm weather. As soon as it's cold, they come around our area. It's about to get louder, I swear it is. But yeah, they did everything right at the hospital. They even sat there and checked that my heart wouldn't be put under undue strain because these tablets had a habit of giving people heart attacks. So they even checked my heart out. Everything was fine. Over the 6 weeks I was taking these tablets, I started not only having more deja vus, and by more, I mean 10, 15 a day, but I just thought deja vus are something to do with your brain chemistry. I'm messing around with my brain chemistry, could have something to do with it. And jamais vus. I was driving one day, because I had my provisional license then, and my husband said to take a right at a roundabout to go down a certain road. And I said, I don't know what road you're on about. And he was like, it's the road to the garden centre. What garden centre? Your favourite garden centre, the one with the animals. I don't know what garden centre you're on about. It had totally gone from my mind. And I was driving the car. Anyway, I did take that. And as soon as I got down that road, about 150 yards, I recognised the road. But for about 3 minutes, I had no recollection of a road that at the time I'd driven down probably 100 times and been down even more because it's where my favourite garden centre is. It's awesome. It's got a calf, it's got animals, it's got lakes, it's got plants. It's Steph Heaven. Is that right, baby? Yes. Yes, it is. Sorry, he's just jealous because he likes birds and animals and he hasn't been, have you? You think I'm mad because I'm not talking to a human. That is okay. I'm talking to my phone though. I'm getting some right funny looks. Malamutes are far, far too intelligent for us humans, aren't you? You should go and play with orangutans. Right, so things like this happened. After that, I just refused to drive because I was dangerous and I realised I was dangerous. So I was like, no, not happening. Not driving my own car anywhere ever again. Just no. Because if you can lose somewhere where you've been that many times, you're dangerous. Already worked that one out. My depressive episode wasn't getting any better either. in fact, if anything, it was getting worse, because the black cloud of depression, it's there. It's always there when you've got it. But this had extra stress because I knew something was wrong with my brain, but I didn't realise how wrong. And I was getting more ill because I wasn't having the migraines. I was just having deja vu, jamais vus. And I was also having, right towards my first seizure, I was having something called auditory hallucinations. Now, when you speak about that, you think of schizophrenia and things like that. What would happen is someone would talk to me, say my husband would talk to me, and instead of what he's like saying, how's the weather? And I would hear my mum say, what's for tea? So I would answer my mum, who lives 50, 60 miles away, we're having lasagna for tea. And my husband would think that I had lost the plot. Oh, now my little girl's coming. I think they both think that I've lost it. So that would happen. Then one night I went to bed and I remember thinking, hopefully soon these tablets kick in, because I am fed up of living like this. It was literally my last thought before sleep. Anyway, I woke up and the next thing I truly remember is my husband, son and daughter stood in the doorway, didn't really know who they were. The kids were calling me mum and him dad, which meant that I worked out that they were my children and he was my husband or partner. Right, okay then. So I have a family. There is my family. And there were two people in green uniforms with EMAS, so that's East Midlands Ambulance Service, on their uniforms, talking to me, trying to get responses from me, taking my bloods, taking my SATs, taking all the rest of it. And I just didn't know what was going on. I had no clue. Apparently, I'd woken my husband up having a tonic-clonic seizure and had actually come out of the bed onto the floor, and he got me back into the bed because I'd been conscious for a few seconds afterwards and then gone back to sleep. And then the bit that I remember is the ambulance service waking me up to take all my observations. I didn't realise until I was in the ambulance that I was lucky. This is the one time I have had a bladder evacuation during a seizure, but some people will have bladder, bowel and stomach. So both ends, all three holes will evacuate, which can be not only messy and degrading and make them feel like absolute not nice, especially if you react badly to it. It can also be dangerous, so we'll get to that later on. But all I'd done is I'd weed myself, which is no biggie. In the middle of the night, you know, these days I actually get up to go to the loo most nights, so I think that kind of put a switch in my head that the middle of the night I need the loo. You never know when you're going to fit. And I was talking fine, and I could text my husband from the back of the ambulance. I texted him to go, remember my tobacco, because I'd not brought it with me. Because strangely enough, I don't smoke in my house. I only smoke in my back garden. So my tobacco was by the back door, and I'd not been by the back door. So remember my tobacco. Priorities, folks. by the time I got to hospital, I couldn't talk properly and I couldn't write properly. It took me about a week to be able to write my own name again. Now, luckily enough, we have severe dyslexics in our family. So when I was writing to my mum, texting my mum, she knew what I was saying anyway, because we're used to dyslexia. There's only a few text messages that she read wrong, but you know what? When someone is actually writing basically gobbledygook because their brain is fried, I big up to people who can read that. So the worst part is the post-ictal headache. I'm sorry, to me personally, the post-ictal headache is like a migraine, but lasts for anything from a few hours to some people I've heard it last months too. For me, it's about a week usually. However, if I have multiples or I have big ones that last longer than about 3 minutes, it can last longer than a week, but it's a week-long migraine. I literally hid in the bedroom for at least a week after that seizure, which sounds bizarre, but on about the 3rd day, I think it was, I came down to make myself a drink of tea or coffee or something, and I wasn't really talking, and I'm getting upset. I can hear it, I can feel it. I didn't feel human because this had just come out of nowhere, and there's only ever been 2 things that I've been afraid of when it comes to medical anything. My birthday is World AIDS Day, so AIDS and HIV has always terrified me. I grew up in the AIDS epidemic, and my birthday is World AIDS Day. Now I'm going to be doing one of these videos for AIDS for my birthday. It's also Romania's National Day, so I'm going to be doing a Romanian video. And the other one is epilepsy, because I grew up with a nocturnal epileptic dog. The chances. And seeing Ebony, that was the dog's name, go through her seizures and how she was afterwards was just heartbreaking. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, but instead I ended up with it. So I hid in a room and I went downstairs on about day 3. I could talk, but I didn't feel like I was myself. You know, I'd lost a load of my brain. The average seizure, it kills something like 50,000 brain cells, and it's hard to feel like yourself when you've lost 50,000 brain cells. It's not something that you get over very easily, especially not the first time. Bit of a shock to the system, as they say. So I go to make a cup of tea, and I'm in like a green hoodie, and I put my arm up to the side like this, and instead of one arm in a green hoodie, there's 5 arms there, because my mind is remembering 5 arms in 5 hoodies. And I literally had to go like this and follow my arm down to work out which one the hand belonged to that was mine. Yeah. So that is how much fun it is. And then I just went back upstairs. I just couldn't. For the next, probably a year and a half, 2 years, I was having seizures every 6 weeks. And if I was on a seizure medication and it was giving me side effects and I had a seizure, I'd just come off it. And the neurologist would go mad, and I was like, well, it's not worth it. The side effects are horrific and it's obviously not working. I'm not even going to bother. and he'd go mad, and I'd be like, no, right, I won't take any other drug that would do this to me. I'm not going to take an epilepsy med that's doing this to me. And the thing is, that is the truth. I've done that with other types of medication. If the side effects are horrific, don't take it. Nothing is worse than trying to become healthy by making yourself more sick. You don't do that. That is not how you become healthy. Don't come off it cold turkey like I did. That can be very bad for your health. However, I did, so. But I am not recommending that at all. So tried multiple medications. I went from one seizure every 6 weeks to starting to have multiple. So I'd have one seizure, I'd stop having that seizure, have a few minutes break, and then I'd have a second seizure. And sometimes I would have one seizure, a few minutes with nothing, second seizure, a few minutes with nothing, and then a third seizure. Had that a few times. The thing is, I was a nocturnal epileptic, so most of these were in my sleep. I didn't know about them. My husband had to deal with the trauma. My kids had to deal with the trauma. I had nothing to do with it. I'd wake up either to medical staff being in my house, or in the morning waking up to my husband going, my head's killing, and him going, yeah, you had a seizure last night, 4:30, don't worry, I got you in the bed. I've actually got big teddy bears down the side of my bed, and I mean, you know, the really big teddy bears. Down the side of my bed is a crash barrier, so that if even now I haven't had a seizure since November 2016, it is now September 2021, I'm almost at 5 years seizure free, and I still have big teddy bears there. So if I have a seizure and go off the bed, I am less likely to hurt myself because I have a crash barrier. This is, yeah, how it works. The common threads for me were, because I am a nocturnal epileptic, everybody thinks nocturnal means night. It doesn't. Nocturnal epilepsy either happens when you're very, very tired and should already be asleep, when you're asleep, or just after waking. It appears to be the chemicals released for sleep create the perfect storm for a seizure. I've only had one while I was very, very tired, and that was my last one. That was the one in November 2016. I've had several within an hour of waking, and they were all awesome, because on almost every single one I ended up with black eyes, broken nose, split lip. The amount of people that would say, oh, is your husband beating you? If he is, he's only got one arm. Because it would be like that, you know. No, that's not how someone beats. If they're going to beat you, they tend to beat both sides. Doesn't matter what hand they are, they'll beat both sides. They don't just go for eye, mouth, nose. Sorry, that is very rare, because usually when you're angry and you beat someone, you don't just go for one big punch and manage to. No, it doesn't work like that. It is usually, because my routine is, you get up, you go into the kitchen, start making a cup of tea, go for a cigarette, come in, crash down on the kitchen side on the way down. I don't know how I never spilt a cup of coffee on myself, but for some graciousness, I never scolded myself. I never ended up with a knife in my face. Nothing like that, just head injuries from hitting it on kitchen sides. Then the only time of daytime seizure, on Christmas Day 2015, I had 5 seizures in the daytime. And did I tell you about the night fits? The rest of my fits were all at night while I was asleep, so I'd literally have to have my husband tell me that I'd had a seizure. Like I say, I was lucky. I only actually wet myself once. Do you know what I mean? All of those seizures, I only wet myself once, which I think I'm quite lucky, because otherwise I'd have had to have had like bed sheets and stuff to make sure I wasn't soiling the mattress or what have you. But that is quite a normal step. If you have someone who's epileptic, doesn't matter whether they're day, night or both, having bedding on for that, it's a good idea. Otherwise it's not very nice sleeping on that mattress. So yeah, on the Christmas Day seizures, I had 5 seizures in the daytime. I'm a nocturnal epileptic, should not be having 5 seizures in the daytime. And they couldn't find a cause for it. The only thing they could find wrong with me is my temperature was elevated to an entire 38.5 degrees. In other words, there was no reason for it. That is not even classed as a temperature. So they were actually worried I was going to die. They told my husband to prepare my family in case I didn't make it through the day on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas! I did, obviously, because I'm stubborn and lucky. The great thing is there was, is it norovirus in the hospital as well, so they couldn't even keep me in. Because right now in the pandemic with COVID, unless it's something majorly serious, they are not going to keep you in, because they don't want to give you COVID by accident. With norovirus, they don't want to give you norovirus by accident. So, yeah. After the Christmas Day seizures, I was put on a completely new family of drugs. And I was sent to a different neurologist in a different city, because I'd given up at my local hospital. You'll notice this is a theme throughout these videos. So I went to a different county, different hospital, different neurologist, different meds, completely different family of meds, because there were actually, for quite a lot of medications, there were different families of medications, because keeping with one family of medications is not always the best idea. So they'll come up with a different idea of medications and it will be called a different family. It's a bit like for pain relief, you have opiate painkillers, you have non-opiate painkillers, you have non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, you have steroidal anti-inflammatories, you have analgesia. You know, they're all doing the same thing but in different ways. So I'm just thinking of that because that's something that you might think it sounds weird. That's an easy thing to compare it to. So I go on to this new lot of meds and I'm okay, but I'm been told that because I go blue around my lips, my nose, and my fingertips, and I think my eyes and ears, my heart goes into, is it cardiac defibrillation or arrhythmia? I can't remember which. They've never caught it during a seizure, but it's when your heart is supposed to beat like that, but instead it's beating all out of joint. It's having a seizure too. So it can't pump blood properly, can't pump oxygen properly. So that's why I was turning blue. Anyway, because of the fits on Christmas Day, my heart had been put under that much strain. It was having trouble pumping after the fits. And I was having so much trouble. My heart rate was something like 150 beats per minute resting. And doctors didn't think to tell me this. I knew there was something wrong, but they didn't think to tell me this. So that was nice. And I went walking up a hill once and my heart rate was horrendous. My husband was taking a mick because he didn't realise there was anything wrong. And it wasn't until a few weeks after that we found out that actually my heart had been beating out of sinus rhythm. Is it out of sinus rhythm they called it? Because it was still, if you checked on my, I forgot what they call it, where they put the cuff on, it looked almost perfect, but one of the peaks wasn't where it was meant to be because it was still, it was like pumping like that instead of like that, if that makes sense. I'm good. I'm so technical. You can tell I'm not a doctor. So part of my heart wasn't beating right. However, when I then had the seizure a few weeks after that in November 2016, what a Hail Mary, my heart started beating in normal sinus rhythm again. What are the chances? However, I've since found out that there is actually a heart defect where it goes out of sinus rhythm anyway, and they actually restart your heart with an electrical charge and pretty much put you into what my heart, by the way, that's my other dog sneezing, put you into like a miniature shock, pretty much the same as what my seizures did. So I had a touch of somebody else's illness there for a while, and anyone who's got that, I feel for you because it was horrific. So yeah, so these new meds, they worked. I had them upped by like 15 milligrams after the November fit, and recently, like just over a year ago, I finally got my driving license back. I was told I could have it back after a year with no seizures, only I wanted to make sure that I felt, ready to drive, which is easier said than done because I still get migraines. My migraines are horrendous. Deja Vus only come near the migraines. At one point I was still having other mini fits. I had one once where it was more of a focal seizure. A focal seizure is like part of your body goes into spasm. My entire side of the face went into spasm, and then went sort of like I'd had a stroke for a second, and then by the time I came back to, my face had gone back to normal. But yeah, that happened once. I was talking to my son's teacher, absolutely fine, then started spouting out absolute frolics, wasn't making sense. The teacher thought that I was on drugs, but this lovely foreign mother, and the reason why I'm saying foreign is for a reason. So English wasn't even her first language. She realised there was something wrong, but the teacher thought I was on drugs. Yes, exactly. So I know who I prefer out of them. So thank you, lovely mother, from my son's then primary school. I absolutely love you. Muchos respect. I hadn't even realised that I had a problem. The teacher's face had just gone dirty, but frankly, she was a bit of a moo anyway. Thank you for making me realise that there was something wrong, because brain up here was saying all the right words, mouth just wasn't. So the auditory hallucinations, they eased off when I got onto the right tablets and disappeared within weeks. It was magic. Now, coming round from a seizure, as I said, the post-ictal headaches are like migraines that last a long time. I know it sounds weird. I feel like there's a spot, going up then, little girl, that like moves around your head, and it has to get back to where it started for the headache to go, and it takes forever, and you feel every single micron that it moves. It hurts. Not only that, biting your tongue and the inside of your mouth to shreds. Awesome. I totally recommend that. Honestly, I do. Because when you're like, hi, hello, afterwards, because your tongue is big and swollen, your cheeks are swollen, because you've just chewed them. I remember once, your tongue regrows really, really quickly. The end of my tongue, all around the outside edge, looked like, you know, your grandma's lace doilies. It looked like that because of me chewing my tongue so much, and my cheeks were just huge and inflamed because I'd just bitten chunks out of them as well. As I've said, you can evacuate your bowels, your bladder and your stomach during a seizure. So if you see anyone who's coming around from a seizure, remember, make sure they have finished seizing and then get them into the recovery position. If it's obvious they have something in their mouth because they have been vomiting a lot, try and clear their airway without putting your hand into their mouth because they can start seizing again at any second. Okay? You don't want to put anything into their mouth, so try and get them onto their front for a second. You know how you do with a baby with colic, you rub their back, right? Try something like that so that they can get it out of their mouth themselves. You don't want to clear it unless you notice that they're having trouble breathing, because if they go into a seizure again, you do not know how strong an epileptic is during a seizure unless you've been there. I have known people who literally can barely pick up a mug of tea, throw a table across a 20-foot room. No, I'm not lying. And luckily enough, I turned around at just the right time, because otherwise they'd have taken me out. They'd have they threw it at me. They didn't mean to, obviously. I turned around at just the right time and caught it in midair. And if I hadn't have done that, it would have caught other people as well, because it would have knocked me out and gone for the other people who were technically in front of me, but I turned around, so then they were behind me, if that makes sense. But yeah, I turned around and there was just a table there, and it's like, oh great, put that down. And then went and had a look, and a friend of mine was having a seizure, and she'd just thrown it across the room. Thrown it. Yoink the table. A woman who can barely pick up a cup of tea. So you do not want to, like, get in there to clear somebody's air tube. Not only that, clearing somebody's air tube like that could actually push something down their air tube. So you want to try and clear it without getting any fingers, spoons, knives, whatever, down the back of their throat to clear their air, because you could actually get it into their air tube, put them in the recovery position. If you are there and somebody goes into a seizure, if they are in tonic, right, it doesn't, you're not going to be able to do much, because tonic, everything goes stiff and they're just like, honestly, it's awful. They are looking through your soul. Probably to about 3 alternate universes away. Gone. And the reason why it's called tonic is it's like they're in a catatonic state. You're not going to have much chance of moving them, because some of them will go tight and all their muscles will tense. What you need to do is, if you see someone in any form of seizure, move everything out of their way that you can. Any furniture, any books, anything that they can hurt themselves on, any ornaments, stuff like that, move it. Just move it out the way. And then when they go down, put something under their head. A cushion, a coat. Say you're in the middle of a shop, like, I don't know, Primark or Walmart or whatever. Literally take towels off the shelf and put it under their head, because they are going to cause more damage by headbutting things than what they are by just having the seizure. With a seizure, you're losing 50,000 brain cells. That is not a nice thing to wake up from. But then on top of that, you've just headbutted a floor or a table or something else for 3 minutes straight at full power. Your body's full power. Now you've got to think, an athlete is thought to only get up to 70 to 80% of power, and before they go into burnout. You have no control over yourself while you're having a seizure, so you go up to full power. You're literally turning the dial up to 11. So when you really go for it, some people, when they have the seizures, some are only little seizures. I'm about a mid, probably a 4 when I go into it. Some people, when they have a seizure, especially if you see them in the hats, that means that they really go for it when they have a seizure, because those hats are there for a reason. Put something under their head, even if they do have those hats on, still put something under their head. Once they finish their seizure, make sure they can breathe, get them into the recovery position. If they're going blue and you can see that they are not breathing properly and you cannot feel a steady pulse, you may have to start doing CPR. Right? That means chest compressions, not mouth to mouth. Also, when they come around, if they have evacuated their bowel, their bladder, or their stomach, just say, oh, it's all right, it's totally fine, you were having a seizure. Do not go, I can't believe you did that. And on my best rug too. No, don't do that. That is just evil. Seriously, that is evil, because they didn't do that. Their seizure did that, and they had no control over that. Right? So, yes. Also, unless they are a known epileptic, so they know that they're epileptic, and they turn around and say, this is how my fits go. Do not ring for an ambulance if my seizures are like this. If my seizures aren't like this, then ring for an ambulance. Okay, so for me, if my seizure is 3 minutes, or well, about 3 minutes, and I don't go too blue, I'm fine, I'm good. When I get around, I'm not going to be able to speak properly, but I will be able to do that. Just check how I'm feeling. Am I good? How are you? How's your head? Because if I try and talk, brain will be going, hello, how are you? And mouth will be going, because they're not connected at that time. Some people, they know how their seizures go that well that they can turn around and go, this is how I have a seizure, this is how I recover. If anything seems wrong, then call an ambulance, but otherwise leave me to it. Seriously, some of us, like me, we don't like calling an ambulance just because we're seizing. Now, because it's been so long since I had a seizure, my next seizure, I know fine well I'm going to need an ambulance. But back when I was having seizures every 6 weeks, I didn't need an ambulance every time I had a seizure. It was silly. All they do is take my bloods in case I was suddenly diabetic out of nowhere. They'd be like, oh, we're going to take your bloods. And I'd be like, what? And they'd take my bloods and be like, oh yeah, you're 3'8". Really? I'd never have guessed. What did I just tell you twice? Seriously, you have your bloods taken that many times, you can kind of feel what your blood sugar level is. I'm sure most type 1s and some type 2s can actually tell you what their blood sugar is. You can turn around to them and go, so what's your blood sugar? 4.2. That's a bit low. Yeah, well, I need to do my insulin soon, so, or whatever. I don't, that'll be low. I don't know. Anyway, then they'd be sitting there going, yeah, like 4.2 or whatever, and then do the finger test, and I'd be like, yeah, 4.2. Ah, look, they knew. But yeah, so dead legs. 50 minutes in, I wonder why. So go, if somebody's a known epileptic, go by what they want. I know it's scary for the non-epileptics in the room, because epilepsy is scary, let's be honest. I've been there for numerous other people having seizures, and it's a nocturnal epilepsy. This is going to sound really weird. When a a daytime epileptic or anytime epileptic has a seizure, it actually gives me a headache. It's like, I don't know whether it's a fear response or some kind of like pheromone or something, but honestly, I end up with a headache. Not a migraine, but a really bad headache, like a warning sign or something. I don't know how to put it. For about 3 days after. It is really bizarre, and I would not recommend those kind of headaches. Not a fan. So anyway, yeah. So normalizing epilepsy. It's a thing we need to do. There's no shame in epilepsy. It's usually nobody's fault, and when it is somebody's fault, it's usually not the person who's epileptic. You know, it's actually something like it's hard to become epileptic. Like I say, I was showing signs in my childhood that I could be epileptic, and it was missed numerous times, or ignored, or I was just told that I was a wailing banshee or something. But nobody chooses epilepsy. Ways I've known of people becoming epilepsy are usually head injuries, and also dependency on drug and alcohol, because if they stop drinking or using certain drugs, that can cause it. Well, I say that it's like when you stop cold turkey, that can cause seizures to happen, because your brain is then reliant on the drugs or the alcohol, so that can cause a seizure. Other things that can cause it are medications and certain things going wrong within your body. Like I say, one seizure doesn't make you epileptic. And there's also non-epileptic attack disorder, NEED, where you will have something that resembles a seizure in every way, shape or form, except for the fact that it isn't. How bizarre is that? I've actually met only one person with it, and she always knew she was going to have a seizure, and I did actually see her once, and she was absolutely fine, and then she suddenly got up, walked out. I said, "Where are you going?" She said, "I'm about to have a fit." She walked out of the door where we were, went and laid down, and had a nice quiet seizure to herself, which was actually quite cool. She just knew it was going to happen, and she just went and laid down and had a fit to herself. Like I say, if somebody has something like this, most of the time they know how to cope with it. They know what they're doing. And if they say, don't ring an ambulance unless, you don't ring an ambulance unless. No matter how afraid you are, please don't ring an ambulance unless. If you're walking down the street though and you see somebody seizing in the street, your first thing to do would be to ring an ambulance, because you have no medical records, you don't know anything. They could have been attacked, they could have been run over, they could be coming down from drugs or alcohol, they could be overdosing on drugs or alcohol, they could be having a reaction to something. You don't know what is going on in that situation. Nobody knows what is going on in that situation. However, if it's your friend who's come round for a drink and they go into a seizure and they are known to you and they are a known epileptic, hopefully You should have the kind of friendship where they've turned around and said, yes, I'm an epileptic. This is how I fit. This is what I want you to do. This is what you should do. And this is what you do if things turn nasty for me. You know, that is what should happen. This is how the conversation should go. And not only that, doctors should actually listen when somebody is having troubles with things like migraines, deja vu, jamais vu, stuff like that. They should actually just turn around and go, maybe you need a kit on for a week or whatever. I call them Medusa kits. They have another name. Is it, I've forgotten, but the little probes on your head that I'm actually like allergic to. And then you wear a little box, like added snakes to my already snaky hair. Next killing today. They should do that, because that isn't the most expensive of things to do, but it might be able to pick up signs earlier on that someone has the ability to turn epileptic. All it took for me was the wrong medication. I could have caused car accidents because I was driving up until probably a fortnight before I had my seizure, but I was already having side effects and I thought it was the medication. I didn't think for a second I was epileptic. I thought it was either my mental health or the medication or a mixture of the both. I didn't think I was epileptic. Right? I could have caused an accident. I could have killed someone. All because when I was 14, a doctor said I was actually a druggie and there was nothing wrong with me. How wrong is that? Also, when you are a dozen drugs into a family of drugs, you switch the family of drugs. You don't go, oh, but there's another 56 of them. No, you switch the family of drugs. You don't go from brother to brother to brother to sister to sister to sister to brother to sister to first cousin. You don't do that, right? If somebody is having nothing on the first drug, the brother, you change to the sister, to the first cousin, to the second cousin, to the third cousin twice removed, and then you switch families completely. You go from the Smiths to the Sharmas. Sorry, complete genetic dissonance or whatever. You don't just sit there and go along the Smiths line until you run out of Smiths. You switch to the Sharmas. Because you're torturing people. And I do mean you're torturing people. I know epileptics who have been epileptic since they were toddlers. And they are now pushing 30 and still don't have a decent medication. But they have literally been on the same family of drugs their entire life. Same family of drugs. 30 odd years. Well, just shy of 30 years. 18 months per drugs. It'll work. Just another month. We'll add another pill. Just another month. We'll add another pill. And nothing is working. All because they don't want to change the family of medication. You would do if it was antibiotics, wouldn't you? But you won't if it's epilepsy medication. Why is that? Especially given some of the side effects. So yeah, I said I'd keep it under an hour, almost an hour. I'll do a video a day then. Sorry. Yeah, do you get the feeling that I could talk about this a bit longer? But yeah, I'm hoping that this just gives people some insight as to what it's like. I haven't had a seizure in almost 5 years. I'm so proud of myself, but every day that I go without a seizure, I am more paranoid about how powerful the next seizure will be, as well as more grateful that I've had one more day without a seizure. Now that may sound very, very strange, but the longer, with me, the longer it went between seizures, the more powerful the seizure would then be when it came, or the more I'd either get one big one that would be awful, or two or three in short succession. It probably wouldn't actually be that bad on their own, but together the damage builds up. And it's not just the neurological damage, the fact that I lose words, lose the ability to talk, have the headaches after the post-ictal headaches, things like that. The deja vus, the jamais vus, the auditory hallucinations, none of that. It's not that. It's also the physical damage, because your body hurts from all the shaking. Your tongue and your mouth hurt, your teeth hurt. I mean, that's part of the reason why I got such a lovely smile. Yeah, that one there, it first started deteriorating during a seizure, because part of it came off during a seizure. We never actually found that part of the tooth, so I'm assuming I swallowed it. Luckily enough, it caused no damage, but this is part of it. And I have no teeth at the back, because they got that damaged because I have a problem with stomach acid too. On the Christmas day when I had the 5 seizures, they got that damaged that they all started crumbling because of acid erosion mixed with 5 seizures in one day. All of my molars started crumbling, so they just removed them all. And I wanted all of my teeth out, and they wouldn't let me have all of my teeth out. In fact, I've been fighting for just under a decade to have all of my teeth out, and they still won't let me have all of my teeth out. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Do you remember Jeremy Kyle? I would so rock Jeremy Kyle, wouldn't I? But yeah, so this is other things that you don't think about when it comes to epilepsy, is this: you can't have mouth piercings. Your teeth are a big casualty. The muscle ache and the cramps and some of the spasms that you can get. Awful. Anyway, I've got to go now. All I have to say is know your power, have fun, and see you soon. Bye.